This necklace was for the major flower show called Kaleidoscope, which is the Portland Garden Club's flower show. Every couple of years, it's a GCA major. And I looked at the schedule. I thought I love to do jewelry, so I was kidding that. I looked right to the jewelry section. And this necklace was called Mesmerize, Enthrall, Dazzle, Fascinate, Completely Capture One's Attention. Well, that caught my eye as well. So I did sign up for that. And when I started to put this together, I started researching kaleidoscopes, and I loved this color combination when I saw this online. And so I tucked that away and started to put together what I thought would look like a kaleidoscope. And when doing some research on them, they're not flat. They look three-dimensional, even though they are in a flat space. But so I wanted to create something that wasn't just going to lay flat. It had some depth to it. It wasn't all in the same plane. And I chose to take a piece of cardboard and I put some double stick tape down, as you can see in this cardboard. And I started just playing with different shapes of plant material. Normally I come up with a pattern and I replicate it with plant material, but I did it with inspiration from the plant material this time. I used cardboard to come up with these triangular shaped pieces that would go in this to look like a kaleidoscope, the kind of thing that moves when you look into the tube. And I found that this one size was perfect. So that's when I was like, how do I make this out of flower or plant material? And at the time it was winter time, so I went outside and I had rhododendrons in our yard and cut some leaves that are on the wider side. I needed them to be pretty wide. Cut out the center, and then I folded the piece without the seam in it, if you will, the center of the leaf. I got this on Amazon. It's called Microflora, and it's a way of pressing flowers in your microwave. I got this when my son got married, and I wanted to dry the bouquet for my daughter-in-law, and it works really, really well. I just can't say enough about it. And it comes in this package, has two plastic pieces, and then it comes with this layers of material. One layer is wool, which is what absorbs all the moisture from the plant material. And then there's a cotton layer. That's where you put your plant material. You put it on the cotton layer, and you put another piece of cotton on top, and then another piece of wool. And you sandwich it into this plastic container with these attachments on the side that really keep it flat so that your plant material dries relatively flat. I wanted the rhododendron leaves to dry, but I didn't want them to be brittle. I didn't want them to dry fully. I just partially is the best way I can say it. And, I know we have to use dried plant material, but that doesn't mean we can't put it in place kind of still with moisture and allow it to dry in place, and it will be dry by the time of the show. So that's what I tend to do with some of these things. So I folded all these rhododendron leaves over and put it on the cotton, first level of the cotton. And I know this looks very dangerous, but I needed something that would hold it folded, and then I would put the cotton on top of it and slip the knife out of there. Nothing was harmed during this. I was lucky. Put it in the microwave. I did a lot of experimenting on getting it dry so that it would stay folded, but not too dry so that it wouldn't be easily manipulated, because it has to open up a little bit to create this triangle that I was trying to create. So I found something like 30 seconds at 50% power worked, but every microwave is different. So you have to kind of experiment with that. So here they are out of the microwave after the 30 seconds or so, and you can see they're folded still, yet they're still pliable enough that I can open them up a little bit here. So I kept them in their place with these little cardboard cutouts just to keep them while I'm working with them, just to keep them so that they would stay flat and keep the same shape. And I played with them until I finally got the shapes that I wanted. Here it is in place. I used a template here to follow so that they would be the right shape. And what I did was I Then once I got them where I wanted them, I put some epoxy on them. I use the Art Resin epoxy, and I really, really like that. It doesn't have a scent. It's food safe, so it's a little less toxic than some of these others. And while that was drying, because it takes 24 hours, I went to my little chop saw. I love this little thing. If you don't have one and you want to make precise cuts, it's actually pretty cool. You do have to be careful. Pieces do fly. This is harder to do with one hand because I'm using my phone to videotape. So keep in mind, it's a lot easier if you have your two hands there. But it basically has a place where you can put the plant material. I'm using a non-invasive clumping bamboo. And I had drawn a line where I wanted to cut it, and I will just chop it. So these little round things were going to go around these pieces that we had made. Me, myself, and I. And then I started layering more rhododendron around it. Now, keep in mind, you can see that I'm actually doing this on top of white birch bark because that can show, because it's plant material. Whereas if I kept it on template, which is just cardboard, it wouldn't pass. So here it is getting stacked up. And then I'm on to the next layer, and that is these little pumpkin seeds. Now, boards have these wonderful seeds, and they're really fun to play with because you can cut them all the way out or keep them as is or cut them partially out, which is what I did for this particular piece. But one of the things I will say is that if you do dry your pumpkin seeds and store them, make sure you have a tight lid. I did have a little mouse get into one of my bins of pumpkin seeds. They love them, so FYI. But I will dry them, put them in with a little silica gel to keep them dry, and then when it comes time to use it, I do hydrate them. They're a lot more pliable and less brittle when you hydrate them a little bit. So here's a video of me taking this pumpkin seed and cutting out. But as you can see with this X-Acto knife, I'm not going deep into the seed because I want to keep that other layer. There's a protective layer, and the meat inside the seed is protected by these two layers. So you want to just take the top layer off. So I'm going just gently, gently around, and then as you can see right here, I'm peeling off that top layer. Then you take your tweezers and gently pull out the meat that's inside these seeds. And what you're left with is this little shell of, as you can see here, it just gives you sort of a, again, not real thick, but a three-dimensional look instead of just flat. And so as you can see here, I cut some of them out completely to go in the back to give some shape and just different things. And then the ones on the top had the backing on them still. Then I was experimenting. I go back to my template, which was the experimental one, and tried different paints. This was really dark, and I regretted it being so dark, but at that point, I couldn't really change it. Every time I tried to, it just didn't look right. I had to be aware that it's gonna be a little dark. I just kept moving. I took the bamboo and I painted it hydrographic powder gradient liquid nail, chrome, rainbow, mirror, etc. So it was one of these colors. It's really nice. You have to go and buy, there's a base coat you have to put on, and then you have to cure that under a UV light. And then you put the gel on, and then you apply another top coat to cure it. There's a whole process. You have to go through and find out exactly how to do this. But this is the one I used for this necklace. I think it was the green bluish color here. You'll see. It's just beautiful stuff. Moving along, once I got the whole thing put together, then I had to go for the chain. Well, and I wanted it delicate, but I wanted it to tie in with the kaleidoscope pendant. So I went online, I saw this chain, I thought that looks interesting. You have a little dash of color in between, and I wanted to do something like that. So I took inspiration from this, and I went online. I found out how do you manipulate your links to look like a figure eight, because that's essentially what it was. So it shows on the internet. You can go, and I didn't put it in here because it's not my work, but you can find other people using real jewelry to twist. And you basically take a long strip of your raffia that's been twisted. I put a little tiny copper wire in the middle. And then you can twist it with these round pliers to create these little figure eights. And then I put it on together with two links that are just circles in between to, connect them. So the figure eights, I loved them as is, but I wanted to bring that color up. And I took those little beads that I had created and painted with that nail polish and glued one at the middle of that figure eight so that it would bring that color from the pendant up to the actual chain. So here it is. We have the chain and the little beads in between with the links in between and all together on the mannequin. Now, I chose copper because when I was trying gold and when I was trying silver, which is the typical jewelry, it just didn't work with this nail polish. And so I tried copper, and I thought that's a really cool color. So here it is. It's the Rust-Oleum metallic in the copper. And I know the top looks like it's sort of, it looked great once it was done, as you can see here. I liked it. It's not as flat or satin as the top looks. But here it is on my counter. Problem with these nail polishes is they really don't photograph well. It looks a lot better than this. I don't know why. It just doesn't photograph well. But here it is on the counter, so you can see that it's not flat. When you go on top, it looks like it's flat, but it's not. Here's the side view, and then here's the top view, looking down on it. Then here's the sample card, and it wasn't a lot of different things. I used coriander and pepper for the beads, and some mustard seeds for the top of it, and that's about it. Other than that, it was a lot of raffia and bamboo and the white birch. Sending it to Portland, I was able to glue some styrofoam that I recycle and put it in the bottom, glued it into and taped it down onto a little plastic thing. And then I used skewers to secure it and keep it in place so that it doesn't move around. Because when you're shipping a piece, moving in the box is the worst thing you can do. So whatever you do, when you package it up, make sure that A, the piece does not move, and B, if you're using two boxes, which I highly recommend, that the internal box doesn't move as well. It did well. I got Best in Show and the Certificate of Excellence. So I was happy, and I hope that you enjoyed this movie. If you have any questions, just give me a call. Thank you.